I was working a job that I hated, to put it mildly. I got up every day with a huge knot in my stomach. I was underpaid, underappreciated. It was affecting the rest of my life. I just started this job. I had a family to support, so I felt like there's not much I could do. But I had to do something. So I made a list. What would this next dream job have? It was going to be a closer walk to work, which was ridiculous because my current walk to work was only 15 minutes. I'd get a $10,000 raise and I'd get to use my bilingualism. And I wrote these things down and I reviewed them morning and night. And I believed it in my gut. And then I started applying to jobs. And at first nothing happened. I was applying to jobs. I wasn't even getting phone calls. I wasn't even getting phone interviews. And this went on for a few weeks. And about the fourth week, I got up one morning and I checked the job boards like I always did. And I saw the job. I knew absolutely this was it. And I went into my current job and I gave my resignation, telling my boss that I was quitting because I got hired at this other company. Then I went home at lunch and I applied. And then the countdown clock was on. I had 2 weeks. I'd given my resignation. In 2 weeks I'd be out of work. And I waited. And then when I had only 3 days left, I got a phone call. The moment I answered the phone, I knew I was in trouble because it sounded like someone had put a gun to her head and she was forced to call me. She had all kinds of issues and she was picking me apart for valid reasons. She was giving me a hard time about my lack of formal post-secondary education, about the fact that I jumped jobs a little bit, and I felt it going downhill. The phone interview was going terribly. And then she asked me, when you speak in French, do you have an accent? I picked up just a smidge of an East Coast accent. And I said, speaking of accents, I'm sorry, I realize this has nothing to do with the interview, but I can't help but notice, where on the East Coast are you from? And she goes, what are you talking about? Where on the East Coast are you from? And she said, Truro. I was born in Truro. It's a 10,000 person town, if that, half a country away. And we started talking about the family business that her parents had there growing up, and I talked about how my grandmother lived just outside of town and my memories there growing up as a child. The moment that I told her that I was born in that town, our tone of voice changed. And it ended with her saying, you come in tomorrow morning and we're talking about how we're going to get you this job. So I went in the next day and it wasn't even a formal interview. We just talked about how could she get me in front of the hiring manager. But she said the hiring manager would have the same kind of objections she did. And I said to her, well, you want to fill this job? She goes, yes. I was like, do you think I can do it? She said, yes. I go, get me in front of the hiring manager and I guarantee you I'll get the job. And then I left. And then it was my last day at work at the other job. And at the going away party, I got a paddle signed by 30 some odd people, everyone in the department. Because when I started there, they were up the creek without a paddle. But I had to hide this thing because my wife at the time didn't even know that I quit my job. So I had to sneak it into our house and I had to hide it behind the couch. And then I got the interview and I went in and I met the lady. And at the very end, she said, look, I've been in HR for over 20 years and I would never do this kind of thing. But if I were to offer you a job on the spot, how soon could you start? So needless to say, I got the job and it met every single thing on my list. It was closer walk to work. I was working for this wonderful person. I was in the same industry. I was going to get to use my bilingualism. It fell short just slightly in one area. I didn't get a $10,000 raise. I only got an $8,500 raise, but I was quite all right with that. And that's not even the craziest part. The recruiter from Truro, who was critical in making this all line up, she'd already given her notice. 2 weeks after I started, she was gone.